Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for tuning into this Rafay YouTube channel. So, today we are talking about the recently co located event that was held in KubeCon Chicago around November 6 to November 9. So, if you have been there, you have learned the new trends, and you have seen some more innovation in that space as well. And if you have missed it, you want to eager to know like what is the new thing that I've missed so far from this inaugural conference. And if you have wanted to speak at this conference, the CFP is now open until December 3rd, and you can actually meet us again in KubeCon Paris for the same conference happening next time in a new location that is Paris. So let's set back and I invited the guest from American Airlines who actually attended the conference, and he saw some very successful execution of this conference, and he learned very new thing for this conference. And also he's been a very flu has extensive knowledge in the multi-tenancy in Kubernetes space, so he would love to share his opinion, insight, and drive the conversation where this new wave is coming in a near future. So without any further delay, let's go straight to Vamshi from American Airlines and talk about multi-tenancy in Kubernetes. So first thing first, thank you very much, Vamshi, for joining for the webinar. And first your intro, and then we drive the conversation forward.
Sure, Saim. Hey guys, this is Vamshi Samudrala, the principal architect from American Airlines Cloud Engineering Platforms. That's what you see on the back end. It's like cloud and engineering platform. So I've been working with American. It's past 10 years. So we have gone through a lot of journey in the container space and the Kubernetes space, where we have started from and where we have grown up. So there's a lot of things that every year when we go to KubeCon, we learn a lot. And this year also was an eye-opening projects and eye-opening things, new things that myself and our team also has learned, and what we bring into organization and what we have learned, we are also trying to share a part, and that's the platform. And CNCF and KubeCon is wonderful platform that we could find and we could share our learnings, and we had conversations with so many other teams who has gone same journey and who is facing same issues, and how we are tackling them and how they are tackling them. And it's not like issues, but it's challenges, right? Challenges in the platform and how to make better platforms for developers.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we will drive the conversation forward, but first thing first, the MultiTenancyCon is a co-located event that we're speaking up about in a minutes with Vamshi's experience as well, and a broader challenges that the modern enterprises are facing currently in the area around multi-tenancy, because we often see folks talking about the multi-tenancy at the heart of the cloud-native technologies. It's a way to better separate the isolation, and it's a way to secure tenant. It's a way to be a more productive within your organization and making sure your deployment becomes 4 times faster than it's before. So multi-tenancy is held in KubeCon Chicago, but between the lines is now the CFP is open for the same conference, and you will go through this link and start submitting few ideas, because December 3rd is the last day for the submission. So first, let's talk about few of the question might people have, and then we drive the conversation forward to the broader umbrella. So we will speaking about today in this webinar is on main multi-cluster management challenges and how to deploy true multi-tenancy, tools to help you leverage the availability of application services, and tips for consistent deployment. So first thing first, I think some of the developers who might join us and listening to us right now. So Vamshi, the first question for you: how did you go about convincing or onboarding application team in multi-tenancy in Kubernetes?
Yes. So when you take any organization, right? So it depends on the organization, how the organization has laid out their strategy for application teams to go and use the platforms, right? If there's a centralized, but our from our perspective, we are centralized shared services, which we call cloud engineering platform. We set up a platform called Kubernetes Platform as a Service, which we call KPAS. And what are the process that we have taken to convince application teams is, the first thing is to understand Any Kubernetes cluster, you can just spin up a cluster in seconds. Whether you go to cloud or whether it's an on-prem, you can just, once your infrastructure is ready, you can just spin up a cluster in minutes, right? But the only thing is what it takes to maintain a cluster, what it takes to run an ecosystem for your application of Kubernetes. You need different tool sets, you need different technologies that run around Kubernetes to make it a production grade application, right? That's what you need to make sure, that how easy is it for application teams you're making it to use that platform. So what we have done is we go to application guilds and we present internally, make it how easy for the application teams what we have done, and first to understand what does it takes to run to the Kubernetes platform, right? So you lay down those things as part of documentation and make it available for all the users across the organization to use it. And also, let's take an analogy, right? So have you ever seen an iceberg in an app, when you're on a cruise? So iceberg looks something small on the top, but when you go down, there's very big thing that is underneath below. That's the beauty of iceberg, right? So that's the platform team or the platform engineers or the DevOps in what the team who's maintaining the platform, right, is taking the burden of it from you away when you're running that platform. So that's, once the application teams understands that, it's easy for you so to get customers on board, right? So, and definitely they'll have challenges, right? If you run your application, they'll say that how is my ownership in that space, how am I getting it, whether I can scale it up. So those are all the things like an noisy neighbor issues. You should be able to document it properly and show them that just these are the things that you might face, and this is how you are we are trying to resolve it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm totally agree with you that because I see the same process happening in that space as well. And I think like another question, I think folks asking might be have the folks who are listening to us right now, they are considering like what are the noticeable trend that you have notices in this year, because now we're speaking at the month of November, so it's been 11 months since the 2023. So what are the noticeable trends and the best practice have you noticed while working with multi-tenancy in Kubernetes in your organization?
So when we are working with multi-tenancy, we have a lot of practices given the time. I'll just name a couple of trends that we have noticed. I mean, when you're trying to move to cloud or when you're trying to adopt Kubernetes, the microservice architecture, right? So adopting that microservice architecture will allow the organizations to build scalar and modular systems, and each microservice should be designed to a specific function, right, to make it easier and manage the multi-tenant applications. So one is that's a trend that I've seen from moving from monolithic to microservices architectures. And adoption of CI/CD, it has increased a lot, right? Any applications making it autonomous and automatic for embracing the DevOps practices and using the CI/CD pipelines for deployments and making it mandate across organizations. That's a trend that we looked at and we also adopted it. And there's whatever that goes on the platform is completely DevOps and CI/CD. There's no manual. There's no manual step or process that goes into it, right? And the other thing is everybody is going through the challenge of resource quotas. So the resource quotas and limits, right? So everybody has to implement each resource quotas and limits so that the resource hogging is not there and you are using the system resources. So these are the major trends which I've seen. And apart from this, there are other trends which I've majorly seen for this 2023 KubeCon was across the developer platform experience, right? The developer platforms, how we are onboarding and offboarding the developers or the application teams onto your platform. That's is like using IDP Backstage or anything that you can develop on the front end, that makes it easy for the developers to come to the platform, and also making it easy for access allocation revocation, and also resource if you've not used, how are deallocating the resources, how you are allocating the resources who are in need. So this is the major trend which I have seen.
Yes, absolutely. And I can see it right now. The Kubernetes, we call it boring, meaning it's actually hiding away from you, abstracting away from you. The focus folks talk about. I see as a Linux model. Like previously, you have to understand in 202010. 2010, you're living in that world, you have to understand how the Linux construct works in order to deploy application on top of it. But it's slowly but efficiently, as we're moving on in that era, the Linux is hiding away from us. We can't even think about Linux anymore. We just a cloud services that abstracted away abstracted all the Linux construct from you, and you deploy application on top of it. That's where the platform engineering is great, because it's so much of the cognitive load that the developer has to understand. Is there's something around infrastructure, something around application development, and some other areas as well. But now we are actually efficiently talking about cognitive. That's where I see more and more trends going on in that spectrum as well. So now that another question I think I saw folks frequently asking. So as your Kubernetes continue to evolve, what do you see the 4C as the future of multi-tenancy in Kubernetes? According to you, according to your recent KubeCon multi-tenancyCon experience, and plus whole year working in Kubernetes, what do you see the 4C future of the multi-tenancy in Kubernetes?
So, see, when you say the future of it, as everybody is talking about, I would also rely on same thing, right? So that is automation and AI, right? So, what is the role of AI in the platform engineering and observability? So that will be the future, and how we are implementing artificial intelligence and automation for better resource utilization, and how can we improve our platform performance, and also enhancing the user experience, right? In this multi-tenant environments, how are we enhancing those experiences? So AI and automation will play a major role for the future trends, and this trend will continue for in AI for workload optimization, auto scaling, and proactive issue resolution. Because observability is another type of thing where AI will enhance that to right away resolve the issues, and to also estimate the issues, saying that this is the trend and this is what. And we have seen anomaly detections already going into the platforms, and AI will build more capabilities into it to just make it. And for enterprise preparation, if we talk about, definitely enterprise have to invest in tools and platforms that leverages this automation and AI to optimize what we have spoken about, right? To optimize the resource allocations and performance, so that at the end of the day, it's to reduce the operational burden on the teams. So AI will definitely evolve a lot to reduce that operational burden and to make it more robust.
Yes, absolutely. And I see that's something happening currently. If you look at the news right now, the Microsoft actually hired the OpenAI
Like
CEO,
CEO,
and they are
yes,
actually now supporting the OpenAI. So that's a big thing. That's a big news that is actually you see
yeah,
everywhere happening as well.
I've seen this today morning. Sam Altman was he was yeah, he joined Microsoft, and he will be leading a new research or AI research heading. Will be heading
Yes,
in AI research. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I think the folks see it as a very big news because the Microsoft is having an AKS cluster, moving something big in the Kubernetes space, and this see is like if they are actually going towards OpenAI, then something actually happening behind the scene, and we see more and more stuff going in that direction as well. So some folks they say is something is around the Netflix, like OpenAI, Microsoft is now Twitch. There's a three thing happening in parallel,
Switch.
but
Yeah.
definitely AI is the big thing. We see a KubeCon actually keynote is actually reserved for AI and generative AI as well. So now I think is a great one of the good question I will ask you, because you're working in a wonderful American Airlines, the big enterprises, and have some very good customers around the globe. So what are the key challenges enterprises face when implementing multi-tenancy in Kubernetes?
So see, when implementing multi-tenancy, again, I said there's a lot of depends on a lot of factors inside the organization. What are the challenges what you face? But there is one challenge which I will spotlight on. Challenges with the stateful workloads, right? So we have built platforms for the stateless workloads, but there's always a challenge with the stateful workloads because of data management, persistence, and isolation. So these are the three pillars that we need to care when we are designing our platforms for the stateful workloads. So this has been a challenge, and we always like from internal organization, how did we prepare for it? We implement solutions that address a specific challenge associated with the stateful workloads. such as robust storage solutions and the backup strategies. So we use our open source weather as a backup for our backup tools and pipelines that we run. And the storage solutions, we have tapped into several open source solutions, but when we go to the cloud is offering the default ZRS application across multi region, and we are leveraging those cloud solutions with the backup strategies to make sure for the stateful workloads to work. So this is one of the challenges that I can spot on, but given the time. So
Yes, absolutely. I think that's where you actually, I think there's already been a wave happening, and you see the data on Kubernetes. When the Kubernetes initially came up, some folks say it's just for the stateless workload. Forget about the stateful aspect of the Kubernetes. But we see more and the more companies chiming in and give us CSI drivers. You can
yes,
actually implement and start using storage as well. So basically, in Kubernetes, you have a CSI, you have an interface that you actually plug in, and then you can actually bring in your own storage system behind the scene, and then actually plug in your data, and that data resilience, fault tolerant, it's up to your job. It's not a Kubernetes job. Kubernetes doesn't give you the fault tolerant resilience of data because it don't have any solution for it. It expected from you to actually implement it as well. And as you spoke in multi-tenancy, and that's area is where we need to evolve more and more as well, because that is a challenging aspect. You have a shared cluster, you share a namespace. Now the different teams are using the same cluster but having a different namespaces, but they want to see a data, they want to consume a data. How you actually plug in data that different team members can use those data, that is a very challenging aspect as why. But I see more and more folks, more and more companies and organization heading toward it. Might be we have some more innovative solution comes in, but that's absolutely, you're spot on. That is one of the big challenge that people have to think about as well. So we're talking about the data and persistency as well. But on the topic of this, do you think like when somebody as a startup, as enterprises going toward the journey of adopting the multi-tenancy in Kubernetes, they have to think about from day 01, or is it something that actually comes up in after a year, or after a 6 month, or after a weeks, or after a month? So how do you think, like, is it something we can plan ahead for data persistency for the multi-tenant clusters?
yes, definitely, because when you know the type of applications, when you know the type of applications in your organization and what kind of needs for the data that goes in, you need to plan. You need to plan ahead of it, right? So we can offer the data in multi-region with respect to the backups and availability across active or active passive. So these are the trends that you need to see, right? So whether it's an active passive or active, how the data is written, whether it may be a persistent storage that it's just a storage that your pod is trying to just read from it, or your pod is trying to write it and that is replicated across, and that needs to be available across the region. So there are different kinds of use case and scenarios based on organization, based on applications that we are hosting, right? So when you understand the type of applications, and you need to design the platform accordingly with kind of what kind of use cases that we are trying to address. So definitely these kind of things that we need to plan ahead, and definitely as part of organizations when we are planning these kind of stateful workloads to host, we need to design to host any kind of other applications with robust needs, right? So not only the applications, with the performance, how the performance depends on the type of infrastructure that you're using or type of storage that you're using, the INO, the speed, that what type of INO that you need to rely on, and always need to audit and then see what kind of performance that we're giving it, whether we can enhance it based on type of hardware, uh, whether it may be kind of storage or whether it may be kind of infrastructure.
Yes, absolutely. And I think more and more design patterns are coming towards in this space as well. Even in Kubernetes 1.28, they actually came up with there's a new feature called that if you're already has a storage backend, and sometime you have actually, because in storage areas, basically it's not a very easy thing. People, it is one of the very long learning curve. Basically, you have a PV and PVCs, and then you have a storage classes. But Kubernetes new releases actually have some very good features. that should be explored. And they actually spoke about those design pattern that actually enterprise it would definitely want to learn about. So I think we spoke about storage and multi-tenancy, but the first question now is drive conversation toward this point, like, is it a multi-tenancy clusters, that's something you envision right at the beginning of your journey? Because I saw folks talking about the same questions that in a security space. Are you implement security in your Kubernetes cluster from day 01? Or is it something actually comes out after you have a 2 or 3 month of a journey and you start learning and adopting it? So the same question, is it was multi-tenancy cluster something you envision as you actually adopting Kubernetes?
Sure. So the first question was did we envision the multi-tenant clusters when we are building the platforms? For
Yes.
us, yes, because we have moved from one kind of a platform to other kind of containerization platforms. So initially, we used to host Docker-based, Swarm-based Docker data center clusters, and the platform used to be on the Docker data center. And we used to have a Pivotal Cloud Foundry platform where we moved from Pivotal to Kubernetes. So when we move to Kubernetes, we know that what kind of clusters and what kind of teams that will come on, because we are trying to move the customers, and it's going to be a multi-tenant cluster. So that's why KPAS was designed, and it was for hosting multi-tenant applications, different kinds of applications into a single cluster or multiple clusters, hosting as cluster. Again, we offer same thing, namespace as service and cluster as service, right? So that was envisioned, but as you said, security. When we come to security, there's always a thing. When we moved from the platform, the security was like, it was a thing that we had to enhance it with the zero trust principles, so that the isolation was better and to have better protection across the tenant workloads. What did we do for it? We adopted Aqua. We run AquaSec in our clusters uh, for the vulnerability scans and the management. And also we tap on some open sources for admission controller, previously JS policy, and we used to run Falco. There's heavy open sources tools which we used to run. And also we run service mesh to add additional layers of security to enhance communication between the clusters, between the service to service communication across east, west, and north, south, right? So from our side, what we have prepared ourselves is just keeping ahead of the security features in Kubernetes and implementing the strict policies, considering the different layers of security where it needs, either from the front end of it to the back end. It's a zero trust is must. And for any enterprises that they are trying to establish, once they run into the journey, when more customers come in, what kind of applications come in, uh, we have to incorporate security. Security is the main epitome that you need to definitely have it on the clusters. Um, we also offer PCI, non-PCI kind of thing, because there's kind of audits that kind of applications, the different kind of applications that go. So we distinguish those applications into PCI, non-PCI, and with PCI having some kind of when we go to, because ours is completely AKS Azure, so how security is on the back end, going through the private networks and everything, right? So security is definitely a bigger thing when you're dealing with that kind of applications with multi-tenancy. Uh, you need to take care of security from each and every layer.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is one of the areas in the bigger umbrella in Kubernetes, in the Kubernetes in the platform engineering space, is security in the multi-tenant clusters is something that we actually have to think about very seriously, because we have tools available in the open source market like vClusters, and we have some other tools in the Classic. I have a Kamaji capsule. Those are the multi-tenant tool as well. But considering your option, you have to take a look at your what is your expertise in your team, because actually calling out any open source project and adopting it, it's required a learning curve behind it, and everything we actually add into the layer. Even if this is a good phrase we actually spoke about from our programming era. Even you write a one line of code in your already existing code setup, it's actually opening a lot of door for anomalies to actually bring in, or some kind of abnormal behaviors to add into it. So that's the same way we have tool in multi-tenancy space, But if you actually adopt those, you have to carefully consider as well. But as you spoke about, like in a security space, you have to continuously evolve, because it's not just for the container signing and verification, it's a clustered as well. And then there's a security in Kubernetes, and then the security of a system where a Kubernetes cluster is running, and then the cluster where the cluster is actually hosted, is it on AKS, EKS, GKE? So that is actually you moving up the ladder all the time. So that is one of the area you actually have to clearly consider some of the applications as well. So I think before we wrap up our discussion, I think that's a good way to wrap up, is describe your journey. When did you start thinking about a central platform team, and how did you go about setting up a centralized team for Kubernetes ops, and what was the thought process?
So again, this goes at the organization level, but from my perspective of what journey, what we have gone through, I can answer a bit of it, right? So when we started, again, we said, right. So when we started, we were a centralized shared platform. So our services was a centralized shared platform for all the application verticals that we offer. So any vertical would have their own thing to just go and run, but we offer for the customers, for the teams who doesn't have a muzzle of Kubernetes muzzle, or the developers who needs to develop some time, but who wants to explore the platform. We offered that kind of thing. So when we started thinking about central platform, we know that because our organization structure and our role was already defined for having a centralized teams. So whatever we implement, that would be for all the teams that come and utilize in the central shared services. So the thought was already there, and the thought process was only how to make it better, how to make it fast, how to make it easy. And I said there's no manual process, right? So we have a team on the front end called Runway, that's a developer experience and developer platform team. That works on the front end to just make it how easy for the developers to use the platform and to get on to onboard. And there was a heavy traction across Runway inside with our leaders previously, and our leaders always strive. Like Rasika is our director, and Vijay and Echo. These are our leaders who are mainly on the Kubernetes platform. Who, like, if you can see that, right, innovate like a startup and scale like enterprise. This is the thought process that always goes, and this comes from our product leaders manager Vijay. So I mean, this we always innovate. We think that we are a startup that makes it a process very easy, and we think at a bigger scale. And when we want to scale it like an enterprise, we always incorporate about the standards. We think about different kinds of applications that come in, and how can we support those applications to make it platform better every day with the standards American has laid out. Maybe a security standard, maybe an audit standard, maybe a logging and monitoring standards. Whatever the standards that we take it from different teams and we put it and incorporate into the system, we always work through that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think on the topic of on the same discussion, how to structure a platform team then? Like that's another question we see in the debates very often. Like, is it a way exists today that I can structure? Well, I can structure my team by actually learning from some kind of
So
principles we have from industry.
for me, see again, let's take an analogy, right? How to structure a platform team? I don't know. With my experience, I mean, there are different kinds of patterns again available. Depends on your organization internally whether it lays as a one centralized team or a verticals that you do it, or each vertical has its own teams and just have a platform scale across those teams and make sure what are the needs of each platform you do it, right? So I mean, it's again in that patterns. You'll have one central cluster, or you have multiple clusters for each vertical, where each platform team will go and take care of each platform teams. Or platform team is only responsible for the platform. There's a limit and there's a RACI that you define for application teams. You go. So I mean, there's a different kinds of definitions that you can do it. But again, for my analogy, right, for a platform engineering is generally for for any organization, it should be a one central team that takes care, because there's better standardization of process, and there's a better control of what's going inside the platform and how much is the needs of it, and what are the resources, better cost, and the cost optimization, right? This is the biggest thing that you don't know when you're starting the platform. but the cost is the biggest factor that you look into. So these are other things that you'll go into. But for my perspective, it should be one centralized cloud center of excellence, or one cloud team, or maybe one platform team that should go across the verticals or across the application teams, or one team that sets up and takes care of the needs, so that you are funneling through the needs of it. Uh, in our product, my product owner, Simon, he, after the KubeCon, there's a new learning. He gave me that less is better and less is more, because how many clusters that we are running, the complexity is also increases. So make sure how we are optimizing the needs and how we are trying to run this better across platforms. And I'll give you a small analogy, right? Platform engineering is like, if you think a building blocks, right? Each building block is like a web program that you're building it up, and each, if you have multiple kids, like so many kids that are trying to play, and they're trying to play with that set of blocks, as a platform engineer, it's our responsibility, or platform engineering team's responsibility, how we are taking care of those blocks, so that the kids or who are playing with the blocks are not harming them, or not wasting them, or not maintaining them. We need to maintain it properly, and we need to spray it across, so that each one, everyone who wants to play and who wants to build their own things, should be able to build it with respect to the tools or blocks which they have.
Yes, absolutely. That's a super analogy to think about as well. And also, I think folks from living in that DevOps world, or the even from the in the development space or the application developer, they see the analogy very clear. They can actually love the analogy you actually brought up, because right now, if you think happening, like if I am a developer, I want to deploy my application. What I'm doing, I need a cluster that is a Kubernetes base that's becoming a standard going forward. Anything you would have to deploy something on top of Kubernetes. But I'm not owning the cluster. There is something in my team who want to actually bring this cluster up for me, so I can deploy my application on top of it. As soon as my application are deployed on top of it, I need more tooling. I need GitOps drift detection system,
Protection systems. Yep.
and then I need GitOps. And then I realize that I don't have access to write something on that cluster. I have read-only permission. Then I go back to again the DevOps team. Please give me role-based access control, or read or write access to the cluster, so can I deploy app on top of it. As soon as you're going and troubleshooting, you fine tune and need, I need a service mesh. Oh, and then you go
Then
back again. Yes, I need a permission so I can actually deploy application. As soon as you're going up the ladder, you need monitoring, observability, policy enforcement, and compliance. It's a huge learning curve, and going back and forth is not something you actually, I think, bad, but remember, it slows you down, because for every one task, if I'm actually knocking your door, instead actually you are actually so kind enough person, you actually bring back and actually very immediately responding to my question. But that's not very happen often. You have so many tasks within the team, they're going to respond, doesn't respond immediately. So that's why I think, like, the analogy you're bringing up, it's so vital for the platform team. And as you mentioned, having a one team that are taking care of the responsibility and helping all the team within the organization to lift off their journey. That's where you should the focus would be for the moving forward. So before we wrap up, what is the next for Vamshi? Where are you actually going in the next few years? Where will people see you? How do people connect with you? And what is actually you are most excited about in the platform engineering and multi-tenancy space?
Yep, definitely. As I mean, to wrap up, right? As I told you, multi-tenancy for me, it's always means sharing resources with larger infrastructure. And for platform engineers or any platform engineers, it is like involving in designing and managing that infrastructure in a way it supports the diverse application needs, and how and making an independent needs of each, and meeting that independent needs of each customer, making it self-serve, right? Making it self-serve for application developers. And for me, and I have for me, for the next future is tapping into, as I said, AI. So unleashing the capabilities of platform engineering with AI, and what we can do, and how can we use those technologies maybe the language learning models, how models, how to use those models to better have the platforms to address the troubleshooting needs or the resource optimizations. I think so. And you can reach out to me. Uh, there's Vamshi. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and you can reach out to me on Slack on CNCF or on the open source Kubernetes. And the Rafay channels also, and so, I mean, it is an open channels that you can present. I mean, I've been on the other channels, but these are things which you can, or you can just email me at samudralavamshi@gmail.com.
Thank you. Wonderful. Really, really great to play talking to you. I'm sure we'll do more of these as we actually see more of the trends coming up our way. So we'll try to dive into it and see good for what's good hidden inside those trends for enterprises, application teams, delivery teams, platform engineering teams, and for the DevOps team as well. So really exciting. I think we have delved into the different aspect of the multi-tenancy. We talk about noisy neighbors, we talk about the cost management, we talk about how to actually organize the structure within the platform engineering domain. That's where I see more and more innovation and more and more talks happening. We talk about bit of about platform product mindset as well. We talk about how to remove the cognitive load from the developers team as well. So these are the things we spoke about. But definitely, if you can add your question into the YouTube description or YouTube chair comments, so we will continue. I will continue to monitor those and see how you actually looking at this platform engineering multi-tenancy space in near future, and what are your solution for our already existing challenges we have today. So with that, we're looking forward to your conversation in the in the comments. But thank you very much, Vamshi. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we will meet again soon, very soon again. So hope to see you in the near future as well.
Thanks.
And without and Faisal is thank you very much, Faisal. He's saying very insightful conversation. Thank you very much for joining us, Faisal, and uh, thought they really liked the conversation. So MultiTenancyCon happening again in Paris. December 23rd is the last day for the CFP submission. Me and Vamshi will be teaming up and we're eyeing out what are the favorite topics to actually submit those. But that is open for everyone. Feel free to submit it out. And if you want to craft a CFP, we will help you how to write a good CFP for that. So with that, thank you very much. Hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye, everyone,
Thank
and
you.
have a good platform engineering